Room 204. No windows. The floorboards were saturated with 4 liters of oxidized blood, labeled number 204. A pair of antique spectacles lay on the ground, blood spattered, the lenses cracked. Forensic teams stood silent. Chills ran down their spines. They knew the weight of history in those frames. Evidence of violence. Evidence of Bonnie and Clyde.
The air was thick, heavy with decay. Smell of rust and gunpowder lingered. Investigators moved slowly. Confusion etched on their faces. Each step echoed. They pieced together fragments of the past, the chaos, the desperation. Blood trails mapped out a story of brutality.
This was no ordinary crime scene. It was a relic of terror. Bonnie and Clyde's legacy, their need for notoriety, their disregard for life, a violent spree etched in blood. The spectacles, a silent witness, a grim reminder of their reign of chaos. The harsh streets of West Dallas were unforgiving, a ruthless proving ground for the young and the restless. Here, among the dust and despair, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow were forged, shaped by poverty and the relentless grind of survival. Their childhoods were marked by deprivation, each day a struggle against the oppressive weight of hunger and the relentless heat of the Texas sun. In this crucible of hardship, they found each other, 2 souls drawn together by a shared defiance against the world that sought to crush them. Bonnie Parker, with her fiery spirit and quick wit, found solace in words. Her poetry, a window into her soul, spoke of dreams and despair, of love and loss. She penned verses that danced with the rhythm of her heart, a heart that beat in time with the pulse of the city. But beneath the lyrical beauty lay a simmering resentment, a yearning for something more than the life she had been dealt. Her words foreshadowed a future entwined with danger and infamy.
Clyde Barrow's early encounters with the law were the first steps on a path that would lead to infamy. Petty thefts and burglaries marked his adolescence, each crime a rebellion against a society that seemed intent on keeping him down. The system was an adversary, and Clyde, with his keen mind and unyielding resolve, was determined to outwit it. His exploits were not just acts of defiance, they were declarations of war against the world that had offered him nothing but hardship.
Together, Bonnie and Clyde were a force of nature, a storm gathering strength. Their partnership was a combustible mix of passion and ambition, each fueling the other's desire for notoriety. The seeds of their infamous collaboration were sown in the fertile soil of their shared discontent, watered by the blood and sweat of their struggles. They were bound by a vision of a life unshackled from the chains of poverty and mediocrity. Their dreams were grand, their plans audacious. They envisioned a life of freedom where they could take what they wanted, answerable to no one. It was a dream fueled by desperation, a reckless gamble against the odds. And so, with hearts full of fire and eyes fixed on the horizon, they embarked on a journey that would etch their names into the annals of history. The world would come to know them as Bonnie and Clyde, the notorious outlaws whose crime spree left a trail of chaos in its wake. But in those early years, they were simply Bonnie and Clyde, 2 young dreamers from West Dallas caught in the relentless tide of their own making. Their story was just beginning, a story that would be written in blood and bullets, in poetry and pain. The world would remember them not just for their crimes, but for the desperate, haunting beauty of their rebellion. The streets of West Dallas may have been harsh, but they were also the birthplace of legends. Legends that grew from the soil of hardship, watered by the sweat of defiance. Bonnie and Clyde were more than outlaws. They were symbols of a generation's struggle against a world that refused to see them. And in their defiance, they became immortal, their legacy a haunting reminder of the price of dreams. The legend of Bonnie and Clyde, birthed from the unforgiving streets of West Dallas, soon evolved into a harrowing tale of crime and chaos. As they stepped onto the path of lawlessness, their early robberies were not just acts of desperation, but also the first notes in a symphony of defiance. The duo's initial forays into crime were marked by a mix of fear and exhilaration, each successful heist further igniting the fire of rebellion within them. Clyde Barrow, with his keen eye for opportunity, led Bonnie into the shadows of night, where the thrill of their first successful heist awaited. A small-town bank, its vaults unguarded by the naive belief in the sanctity of small-town life, became their target. Under the cloak of darkness, they moved with the precision of predators, the adrenaline coursing through their veins like a drug. The air inside the bank was cool, still, and ripe with the promise of ill-gotten gains.
It was in these early days that Clyde's penchant for violence began to surface, a darkness that even Bonnie's unwavering loyalty could not temper. Witnesses spoke of his cold, calculating demeanor, a man who saw life as a game of chess, and death as merely another move in his strategy. Bonnie, ever the dutiful partner, stood by his side, her love for him blinding her to the growing menace that simmered beneath his calm exterior.
Despite the danger, Bonnie remained steadfast, her devotion unwavering, even as Clyde's actions became more ruthless. She saw in him a kindred spirit, a fellow outcast in a world that had long turned its back on them. Together, they were a force of nature, a storm that left a trail of devastation in its wake.
To the public, however, Bonnie and Clyde were more than mere criminals. They were a spectacle. Newspapers splashed their exploits across front pages, each headline more sensational than the last. The nation watched with a mix of horror and fascination as their crime spree unfolded, captivated by the romanticized image of the outlaw lovers. But behind the glamour lay a stark reality, one of blood and betrayal.
As their notoriety grew, so did the mythos surrounding them. They were painted as modern-day Robin Hoods, rebels against the oppressive forces of the Great Depression. Yet, for every story of their daring escapes, there was another of their brutality, of lives forever altered by their insatiable greed. The public's fascination with Bonnie and Clyde was a double-edged sword, one that cut deeply into the fabric of society.
For those left in the wake of their crimes, the reality was anything but glamorous. Families torn apart, livelihoods destroyed, and a perpetual fear that gripped communities across the Midwest. The duo's escapades were not just stories in a newspaper. They were a living nightmare for those who crossed their path.
In the end, Bonnie and Clyde's legacy was one of chaos, their names etched in the history by the blood of their victims. As they continued their spree, their fame became their downfall, drawing the relentless pursuit of law enforcement. The world watched, breathless, as the inevitable climax approached, the shadows of their deeds looming ever larger. The shadows that hung over Bonnie and Clyde's path grew darker with each act of violence they committed. In the summer of 1933, a grim landmark was reached, marking a significant escalation in their spree of terror. The murder of Arkansas Marshal Henry Humphrey was not just another crime. It was a declaration of war against the very fabric of law and order. On that fateful June day, the air was thick with the oppressive heat of an Arkansas summer. The humidity clung to the skin like a shroud, adding weight to every breath. Marshal Humphrey had been tracking the notorious duo, a duty that hung over him like a specter. He was a man of principle, committed to the pursuit of justice in a world that seemed to be unraveling at the seams.
The scene was brutal. Humphrey's body lay crumpled on the dirt road, his badge glinting dully in the dying light of the day. The ground was stained with blood, a dark pool that seeped into the earth, as if the land itself was trying to swallow the horror whole. This was no mere killing. It was an execution, an unmistakable message to all who dared to stand in Bonnie and Clyde's way.
The murder of Marshal Humphrey sent shockwaves through the nation. In the eyes of law enforcement, Bonnie and Clyde were no longer just outlaws. They were public enemies. The response was swift and unforgiving. A task force was formed, drawing officers from across the states, each more determined than the last to bring the pair to justice. The manhunt intensified, a relentless pursuit that would span months and cross state lines, leaving no stone unturned. With every crime, their notoriety grew, feeding the media frenzy that painted them as glamorous outlaws. But beneath the allure of their defiance lay a grim reality. They were becoming increasingly isolated, hunted like animals through the back roads and small towns of America. The pressure mounted, a vice tightening around them, squeezing out any remnants of normalcy or peace.
I remember seeing their faces in the newspapers, plastered across every front page. There was something haunting in their eyes, an emptiness that spoke of the lives they had taken and the lives they had left behind. They were living on borrowed time, and they knew it.
The psychological toll was immense. For Bonnie and Clyde, the weight of their crimes was a constant companion, a ghost that haunted their every waking moment. Paranoia seeped into their bones, turning every stranger into a potential threat, every town into a trap. The world they had once sought to conquer now closed in around them, a prison built from their own notoriety and the blood-stained currency of their fame. As their notoriety soared, so too did their desperation. They were trapped in a cycle of violence and retribution, each act more reckless than the last. The very fame they had craved became a noose, tightening with every headline, every whispered rumor of their whereabouts. The world watched from the safety of their homes, enthralled by the spectacle of their downfall, oblivious to the human cost behind the headlines. In the end, the legacy of Bonnie and Clyde was one of blood and betrayal, a testament to the destructive power of fame and the corrosive nature of violence. Their story, though romanticized by some, was a cautionary tale, etched into the annals of history by the lives they shattered and the fear they sowed. The shadows they cast will linger long after their last bullet was fired, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can reside within the human soul. As the shadows of Bonnie and Clyde's crimes stretched across the American landscape, law enforcement's pursuit was unyielding, a relentless force shadowing their every move. The pair, notorious for their audacity, were now the quarry in a deadly game that spanned state lines, each jurisdiction eager to claim the capture of the infamous outlaws. The chase was a fevered dance of strategy and survival, where each misstep could mean their end.
The pursuit of Bonnie and Clyde was not merely a test of endurance, but a battle of wits. Clyde Barrow, a man hardened by desperation and the thrill of the chase, employed cunning tactics to elude capture. Utilizing the vast network of back roads and the cover of night, he transformed the highways into a labyrinth where lawmen often found themselves lost in the dust of his speeding car. His knowledge of the terrain was unparalleled, each turn of the wheel a calculated decision to remain free.
I remember the whispers in the towns they passed through, echoes of their presence lingering long after they'd gone. Clyde's ability to vanish into the fog of rural America was as if he knew every tree and ditch personally, each one a friend offering sanctuary. The law was always a step behind, tracing the ghosts of their tire tracks.
Yet, for all of Clyde's cunning, the line between freedom and capture was a thin one, often defined by the narrowest of margins. Their journey was marked by close calls, narrow escapes that added to their legend as much as their crimes. Tales of their near misses spread like wildfire, each recounting a testament to their audacity and the luck that seemed to shield them. But luck is a fickle ally.
I saw them once, cornered at the edge of town, the air thick with tension and the acrid scent of gunpowder. They slipped away with a brazen disregard for the chaos they left behind, their laughter mingling with the cries of the wounded. It was as if they thrived on the edge, where life and death blurred into a singular, intoxicating thrill.
As the net closed in, Bonnie and Clyde's path grew narrower, the walls of their world closing in with every passing day. The chase was no longer just a pursuit. It was an inevitable march toward their doom, a crescendo of violence and desperation that could only end in tragedy. The shadows they cast were long, but the darkness that followed them was even longer. In the early hours of May 23, 1934, the humid Louisiana air was thick with anticipation. A hand-picked posse, led by the steely-eyed retired Texas Ranger Frank Hamer, lay in wait on a nondescript stretch of Highway 154 near Gibbsland. Hamer, a man whose resolve was as unyielding as the ancient oaks that lined the road, had meticulously orchestrated this trap. His team was an assembly of hardened lawmen, each one seasoned by years of pursuit and hardened by the violence of the era. The plan was simple, yet lethal. Catch the fugitives off guard, end their reign of terror in a single, decisive strike. As dawn's early light began to filter through the dense canopy, the posse positioned themselves, their breaths shallow, fingers poised on triggers, eyes scanning the horizon for the telltale cloud of dust that would signal the approach of Bonnie and Clyde. Each man was acutely aware of the weight of history pressing down upon them, the echoes of past failures urging them toward success.
The Louisiana Highway, normally a corridor of life and movement, now lay eerily quiet, its silence a harbinger of the violence to come. The road stretched out like a forgotten dream, flanked by dense thickets that seemed to lean inward as if listening to the secrets whispered by the wind. Even the birds seemed to hold their songs, the oppressive quiet amplifying the tension, as if the very air was holding its breath.
For Bonnie and Clyde, the world had narrowed to the confines of their stolen car, a decrepit Ford V8, its engine a dull growl against the morning stillness. Oblivious to the fate that awaited them, they drove with the reckless abandon of the damned, their path a final tragic arc toward destiny. Inside, Bonnie's laughter, once a bright note in their dark symphony, now carried a hollow ring, a desperate attempt to mask the encroaching dread.
I remember the car appearing like a spectre on the horizon, its approach slow, as if time itself had paused to watch the unfolding drama. The mist that clung to the road seemed to part reluctantly, revealing two figures forged from the very chaos they had wrought upon the world. Bonnie, her hair catching the light like a halo of defiance, sat beside Clyde, whose eyes were focused on the road ahead, unaware of the eyes watching from the shadows.
As the car drew closer, the posse tensed, muscles coiled, ready to spring the trap. The air was electric, charged with the impending violence, every second stretching into eternity. This was not just the end of a chase. It was the climax of a saga, the final act of a play written in blood and desperation. Each man knew that within moments, the legend of Bonnie and Clyde would be forever rewritten, their mythos shattered by the brutal reality of gunfire.
In those last moments, time seemed to fracture, each tick of the clock a lifetime. The car slowed, its occupants unaware that they were crossing the threshold between life and death, the boundary between infamy and oblivion. The world held its breath, a brief, pregnant silence before the storm.
And then it came, the roar of gunfire, a cacophony of violence that shattered the morning calm. Bullets tore through steel and flesh, the air filled with the acrid tang of gunpowder and the sickening thud of bodies slumping in final repose. The ambush was swift, brutal, and absolute, a testament to the relentless pursuit that had led to this inevitable conclusion. As the smoke cleared, the legends of Bonnie and Clyde lay still, their bodies riddled with the consequences of their choices. The lawmen, standing amidst the wreckage, could feel the shadows of history pressing in, the weight of their actions etched into the fabric of time. In that moment, the world shifted, the myth of Bonnie and Clyde giving way to the stark, unyielding reality of their demise. The dust had barely settled when the echoes of gunfire erupted once more, tearing through the early morning tranquility of Bienville Parish. The posse, hidden in the dense thickets, were poised like coiled springs, their fingers itching on the triggers, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash a deadly barrage. And then, with a signal as subtle as a whispered curse, the ambush was sprung.
The air was instantly filled with the acrid stench of burnt gunpowder, mingling with the earthy aroma of the Louisiana woods. Bullets tore through the metal skin of the stolen Ford, a symphony of destruction that shattered the morning's calm. Inside the car, Bonnie and Clyde were caught in a maelstrom, their bodies jerking violently as the relentless hail of lead found its mark.
In those final chaotic moments, time seemed to stretch and warp, each second a lifetime of violence and terror. The sound of glass shattering, the metallic clink of shell casings hitting the ground, and the guttural cries of a dying engine formed a cacophony of death. Clyde's hands, once so deft at maneuvering through perilous escapes, now clutched the steering wheel in a futile grip, while Bonnie's screams were lost amidst the deafening roar.
And then, as quickly as it began, the violence subsided, leaving an eerie silence that settled like a shroud over the scene. The lawmen emerged cautiously from their hiding spots, the adrenaline of battle giving way to the cold realization of their actions. The air was thick with the smell of death, a grim reminder of the lives they had taken.
The car, now a twisted relic of metal and shattered dreams, stood as a testament to the finality of their pursuit. Inside, Bonnie and Clyde lay motionless, their once vibrant lives extinguished in a brutal crescendo. The blood-stained spectacles, their glass cracked and smeared, bore silent witness to their violent end.
As the lawmen surveyed the aftermath, the weight of history pressed heavily upon them. The legend of Bonnie and Clyde had ended here, amidst the twisted wreckage and the whispering trees. What remained was a tableau of mortality, a stark reminder of the cost of their rebellion against society.
In the stillness that followed, the world seemed to hold its breath, as if acknowledging the close of an era. The myths and stories that had once cloaked Bonnie and Clyde in a romantic haze now lay bare, stripped of their glamour, revealing only the cold, hard truth of their demise. It was an ending as inevitable as it was tragic, a final chapter written in blood and steel.
The ambush at Bienville Parish was not just the end of Bonnie and Clyde, it marked the end of a myth, a narrative that had captivated the public's imagination and left an indelible mark on the annals of American crime. As the lawmen turned away from the scene, leaving behind the ghosts of Bonnie and Clyde, the world moved on, forever changed by their violent saga. The echoes of their lives, their choices, and their ultimate downfall would linger in the shadows, a haunting reminder of the thin line between legend and reality. As the dust settled in the aftermath of Bonnie and Clyde's violent end, the echoes of their relentless spree reverberated through the lives they had shattered. The families of their victims were left to grapple with the empty spaces at dinner tables, the haunting absence of laughter that once filled their homes. Each day became a battle against the creeping silence that followed the loss of their loved ones, a silence that bore the weight of unfinished conversations and dreams forever deferred. For the families of the law enforcement officers who had fallen in the line of duty, the pain was twofold, a blend of personal grief and public duty. They carried the burden of their loved ones' badges, symbols of a commitment to justice that had demanded the ultimate sacrifice. The air in their homes was thick with the scent of gun oil and the faint echoes of radio dispatches, reminders of the noble yet perilous path that had claimed their fathers, husbands, and sons. The public's reaction to the deaths of Bonnie and Clyde was a complex tapestry of relief, fascination, and a macabre curiosity. On one hand, there was a palpable sense of relief that the reign of terror had concluded, that the roads were once again safe from the specter of their violence. Yet on the other hand, there was an undeniable allure to the tale of these outlaws, a narrative that had captured the imagination of a nation hungry for stories of rebellion and romance amidst the bleakness of the Great Depression. The media, ever eager to feed the public's insatiable appetite, transformed Bonnie and Clyde from mere criminals into legends. Headlines screamed of their daring escapades, their doomed love story, and the violent crescendo that marked their end. Reporters flocked to the site of the ambush, their cameras capturing the twisted wreckage of the couple's stolen car, now a grim monument to the cost of their rebellion. As journalists inked their stories, reality blurred with myth. The truth of Bonnie and Clyde's desperate existence was overshadowed by a romanticized narrative that ignored the trail of devastation they had left behind. The airwaves crackled with radio broadcasts, each recounting the saga with a flair for drama that belied the grim reality of their lives. In the small towns that had been the backdrop to their crimes, whispers of their presence lingered like a ghostly mist, a chilling reminder of the chaos that had once reigned. The streets where they had once fled now stood silent, shadows lengthening as night fell, swallowing the memories of gunfire and screeching tires. Yet, despite the passage of time, the legend of Bonnie and Clyde refused to fade, etched into the collective memory of a nation forever changed by their violent saga. As historians and storytellers dissected their lives, the truth became a casualty of the narrative. The allure of their story, a blend of romance and rebellion, overshadowed the harsh realities of their crimes. The media frenzy that followed their deaths only served to cement their place in history, a cautionary tale of ambition, desperation, and the ultimate price of living beyond the law. In the end, the story of Bonnie and Clyde was not just about two outlaws who defied the law, but about the society that created them, the media that immortalized them, and the families that bore the brunt of their choices. Their legacy, a tangled web of truth and myth, continues to haunt the American psyche, a testament to the thin line between fame and infamy. And as the world moved on, leaving behind the ghosts of Bonnie and Clyde, the echoes of their lives lingered in the shadows, a haunting reminder of the cost of rebellion. The story of Bonnie and Clyde has woven itself into the very fabric of American folklore, a tapestry of rebellion and romance that continues to captivate the public imagination. Their lives, marked by a series of desperate choices and violent acts, have been immortalized in films, books, and songs, each iteration adding layers to their mythos. Yet beneath the allure of their story lies a darker truth, one that exposes the raw, unvarnished reality of their turbulent lives. The cultural fascination with Bonnie and Clyde is as much about our collective yearning for outlaws who defy societal norms as it is about the individuals themselves. Their saga unfolds like a cinematic masterpiece, filled with high-speed chases, forbidden love, and tragic endings. But the romanticized image of the duo, often portrayed as star-crossed lovers against the world, stands in stark contrast to the grim reality of their existence. In truth, Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow's lives were steeped in hardship, their journey a relentless pursuit of survival in the harsh economic landscape of the Great Depression. Their romanticized image, crafted by a media eager for sensational stories, obscures the severe deprivation and constant peril they faced. The reality was far from glamorous. It was a life of endless running, where each day brought them closer to their inevitable demise. The legacy of Bonnie and Clyde's crime spree is etched in the annals of American history, a testament to the chaos and destruction left in their wake. Their actions, driven by a desperate need for notoriety, resulted in a trail of bloodshed that claimed the lives of lawmen and innocents alike. Yet their story continues to resonate, a reflection of our fascination with the blurred lines between heroism and villainy. As time marched on, the myth of Bonnie and Clyde only grew, fueled by a society eager to romanticize their rebellion against authority. The artifacts of their life, from Bonnie's handwritten poems to the bullet-ridden car that served as their final tomb, have become relics of an era where crime and celebrity intertwined. And while their story is often told with a nostalgic lens, it is critical to remember the somber aftermath of their actions. The enduring legacy of Bonnie and Clyde is a complex tapestry woven with threads of fear, fascination, and folklore. It serves as a haunting reminder of the thin line between infamy and immortality, a line they crossed with reckless abandon. And as their tale continues to be dissected and retold, it remains a poignant reflection on the human condition, a testament to the destructive allure of fame and the high cost of defiance. In the end, the story of Bonnie and Clyde is not just a tale of two outlaws, but a mirror reflecting the complexities of society itself. It is a story of desperation and desire, of love and loss, and of the indelible impact of their choices on both their lives and the world around them. As the echoes of their story reverberate through time, we are left to ponder the true cost of their rebellion and the enduring legacy of two souls who dared to defy the world. In the shadowed hollows of Bienville Parish, Louisiana, where the air hangs heavy with history, whispers of the past cling to the landscape like a shroud. It is here, amidst the gnarled branches and dense underbrush, that the specter of Bonnie and Clyde refuses to fade. Strange anomalies have been reported at the site of their violent demise, an eerie mist that coils around the trees, appearing without warning and vanishing just as mysteriously. This spectral fog has become a harbinger of unease, a reminder that the past is never truly buried. The locals speak in hushed tones of the unsettling phenomena that plague the ambush site. Visitors often recount feeling a sudden chill, an inexplicable drop in temperature, as if the spirits themselves are drawing near. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures flitting between the trees at dusk, their forms indistinct yet undeniably human. Others report hearing faint echoes of gunfire, a chilling reminder of the fateful day when the air was pierced by the crack of rifle shots and the cries of the dying.
I was there, standing at the very spot where they fell. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and the light seemed to dim around me. I swear I heard a woman's voice, soft and mournful, carried on the wind. It was as if Bonnie herself was lamenting the violent end that found them here. It sent a shiver down my spine, a feeling I can't quite shake.
Such tales have only fueled the fascination with Bonnie and Clyde, embedding their story deeper into the fabric of American folklore. Their lives and deaths have become a tapestry woven with threads of myth and reality, each visit to the site adding another layer to their legend. The public consciousness holds them in a peculiar grip, a mix of morbid curiosity and reluctant admiration for two souls who defied the constraints of their time. Yet, beneath the romanticized veneer lies a brutal truth, a legacy of bloodshed and heartbreak that continues to echo through the years. The allure of their story is inextricably tied to the harsh realities of the Great Depression, a period when desperation drove many to the brink. For Bonnie and Clyde, it was a time of endless flight, their path marked by violence and loss. their names etched into the annals of infamy. Even now, decades later, the haunting presence of Bonnie and Clyde lingers, a testament to the enduring power of their narrative. It is a story that continues to captivate and confound, a dark chapter in history that refuses to close. As the mists gather once more at the ambush site, they remind us of a chilling truth, that the past is never truly gone, and the shadows of Bonnie and Clyde will forever haunt the landscape they once roamed. In the stillness of the Louisiana woods, where the echoes of the past linger like a forgotten melody, the legend of Bonnie and Clyde endures. It is a story woven from the threads of time and tragedy, a haunting reminder of the indelible mark left by two outlaws who dared to defy the world. And as the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, one cannot help but feel the weight of their legacy, a legacy as enduring as it is haunting. As the sun vanishes behind the skeletal trees of Bienville Parish, its last tendrils of light seem to grasp at the secrets buried beneath the earth. The air is thick, as if holding its breath, waiting for the truth to emerge from the shadows. Beneath this silent canopy, a tale unfolds not just in history books, but in the very soil that cradles the remnants of a violent saga. In the aftermath of their deadly ambush, the ground near the scene had become a macabre canvas, painted with the remnants of Bonnie and Clyde's final act. But the true depth of this story was unearthed years later, when a hidden cache was discovered, a chilling testament to the life they led and the legacy they left behind. Within a weathered, rusting metal box, buried beneath layers of time and earth, lay the personal effects of Bonnie and Clyde, each item whispering its own tale of desperation and defiance.
The discovery was like opening a portal to the past. Among the items were Bonnie's handwritten poems, their ink faded but the words still sharp, cutting through the years with the raw emotion of a woman who lived on the edge of society. Next to them, Clyde's clothes, still stained with the blood of their final moments, a visceral reminder of the violence that defined their lives.
These artifacts, once hidden from the world, now served as a haunting narrative of two souls entwined in a tragic dance of love and lawlessness. The poetry revealed a softer side to Bonnie, her words a stark contrast to the hardened image portrayed by the media. Yet the blood-stained fabric of Clyde's shirt told a different story, a story of a man consumed by the chaos he created. Together, these items painted a picture of a complex and troubled partnership, a bond forged in the fires of rebellion and sealed in blood. But the true horror lay not in these relics of a bygone era, but in the earth itself. As investigators continued their excavation, their shovels struck something far more sinister. Skeletal remains, hidden beneath the roots of an ancient oak. The bones, bleached and brittle from decades beneath the soil, were immediately suspect. Thought to belong to one of Bonnie and Clyde's final victims, a ghostly echo of their murderous path.
The sight was enough to chill the blood. Each bone, a silent witness to the brutality of their final days, lay scattered and forgotten, a grim reminder of the cost of their defiance. Investigators worked tirelessly to piece together the identity of this lost soul, hoping to finally bring closure to a story that had haunted the land for years.
In the end, the discovery of these remains added a new gruesome chapter to the legend of Bonnie and Clyde. Their tale, already shrouded in myth and mystery, was now forever entwined with the tragic fate of those who crossed their path. As the investigation unfolded, the air around the ambush site grew colder, as if the spirits of the past were watching, waiting for their stories to be told.
The skeletal remains were a stark reminder of the darkness that lurked behind the romanticized image of Bonnie and Clyde. Each bone, a testament to the lives cut short by their relentless pursuit of freedom, now lay exposed to the elements, a chilling symbol of the cost of their rebellion. Forensic experts worked meticulously, hoping to identify the remains and bring some semblance of peace to the families still haunted by the specter of the past.
As the investigation drew to a close, the legacy of Bonnie and Clyde became clearer. A legacy not just of infamy, but of the lives they touched, the hearts they broke, and the dreams they shattered. The air around the ambush site remained heavy with the weight of their deeds, a palpable reminder of the darkness that can arise from desperation and defiance. And as the final pieces of this puzzle fell into place, the world was left to ponder the true cost of their legend.